This is the project sheet for your first project, which is the NASA Artemis patch. You should have already watched the lecture on the NASA mission patches. So I'm going to go over this in detail. I'm going to show you a few things. Okay, so you are going to be creating a patch. I went over this at the end of the lecture video. But you're going to be creating a patch for a mission, Artemis 14, that is going to be going to Mars. Don't use the Artemis logos that have already been built that are online. So these are the specifications. The patch must have the following. It's got to have an illustration of the Orion spacecraft. It's got to, must include the crew module. You may also include the service module, which are the part with the little flaps, but you don't have to. Don't include any of the other parts of the spacecraft, such as the core stage or the booster. So the part that we kind of think of as the rocket, don't include that part on your patch. It needs to say Artemis XIV someplace. It needs to have the last names of 4 to 6 astronauts. They can be whatever names you want. Thinking in terms of hierarchy, your word Artemis XIV should be a bit larger than the last names on the patch. You need to limit it to only 10 colors, no gradients. These should be solid colors. Keep in mind that white counts as a color, so when you're designing, your areas that are just completely empty are going to be white. You need to remember to count that into your color count. No gradients, and you can have any other illustrations that you want to on there. Remember that the thing that's famous about this mission is that it's going to be the very first one putting people on Mars. So you want to make sure that you're highlighting Mars and not necessarily the moon. You need to build it completely in Adobe Illustrator only. That's a vector program. You're going to start with a document that's 8 inches by 8 inches. That's an error that says foot, but it should say inches. 8 inches by 8 inches, and your color mode is going to be CMYK. Part of your research, in addition to you researching just generally NASA, these are some things that I want you to research, and it's got the links right here. So this is research the Artemis mission. So this is a link right here, and it's going to take you to this page right here. Okay, so you're going to read over this. You're going to follow all of the links. Now, this information, because it's the current information, it's going to tell you a lot about going to Mars, because that's what the first, I don't know how many missions are going to be. So read over all that, but keep in mind that the patch that you're designing is in the future, assuming that it's going to be going to Mars. So you need to look through all of that. The next thing is research the Orion spacecraft, and it's got the link there, and that's going to take you to this. Okay, so you can come through here, you can see all of the different pictures of the spacecraft. All right, so you're going to do some research that way. The other research that I want you to do is I want you to research patches that already exist. Okay, so you're going to go to Blackboard Exercises Mission Patch Research. You're going to use the link provided to explore designs. Click on the words to see more patches. I'm going to show you that in a second. You're going to choose 3 designs that you like. Save the images, and in the exercise, you're going to tell me what you like about the images. All right, so that takes care of that. The next thing is your thumbnail sketches. Thumbnails are small drawings on paper used to explore ideas quickly. In the lecture called Design Process, I went over exactly what I'm looking for in your thumbnails. So the decisions that need to be made at this point, you need to decide what your design of your Orion spacecraft is going to look like on each of your thumbnails. You need to design what visual elements you're going to have in there. If you're going to have moons or stars or whatever, swoops, whatever. You need to decide on the overall shape of the patch. I don't want just your designs floating around. You need to make sure that you've got them contained in a shape, okay? And I need to see where the placement of the text is. So on each of your designs, I need to be able to see where it's going to say Artemis XIV and where each of the names are going to be. Explored a lot of different arrangements and styles. Create at least 10 thumbnail sketches. Each thumbnail should show illustrations, placement of text, and shape of the patch. Thumbnails are done by hand, not on the computer. So you are going to have to submit these thumbnails to me. And since this is an online class, what you're going to have to do is just take a photo of your sketchbook where you've got your different thumbnails, and you are going to submit it. So what I will do is I'll look at the thumbnail sketches for everyone, and I will go through and give you feedback on that. Keep in mind that I may send you back to create more thumbnails if there's not one there that's working well. You don't want me to pick off a thumbnail idea that's just mediocre, because even if you build it really, really well, the idea is still going to be mediocre, and that won't be good for your final grade on that project. So there's a chance, there's usually about 50% of the students that I give them feedback, and I tell them that I need to see a few more sketches, and I will give you ideas of what I want to see. And you can keep resubmitting them until we decide on one that looks great. Okay. Once we've got that done and have decided which one's going to work, you are going to do a refined sketch. Okay, you're going to take your thumbnail, which is not very detailed, and by hand, or I guess you could do this on the computer if you want to, you're going to do a refined sketch that gives a lot of details, because you'll notice when we're going through Illustrator, and I'm teaching you Illustrator, it's going to be a lot easier to build shapes in Illustrator if you've got some kind of a sketch there that you can follow to build your shapes. Okay, so you're going to do a refined sketch. You're going to think about your color scheme. You're going to build it in Adobe Illustrator. I do not have to approve your refined sketch. I would say put as much detail into that as you can. It's going to be easier to build in Illustrator if you have a lot of details in it. So you're going to build it in Illustrator. You're going to make sure you're building it the correct size. In the new document created, you're going to go File, Place, and you're going to place your sketch. Resize it as you need to, unlock that layer, and then you're going to start building on top of it. Create new layers as necessary and stay organized. Rename your layers. Do not build the entire thing on one layer. Important, build design using closed shapes that will be filled with color. If you are working on a tablet or something, you may want to just be building this with lines. And what's going to happen is when you go in and start trying to fill it with colors, you're gonna find out that all of these lines, even though they look like it on your screen, they look like they're a closed shape, they're actually not a closed shape. They're made out of open paths. So you want to make sure that you're creating closed shapes. That's going to be the best way to do this. Don't use live paint options unless you know how to use them. Do not use the brush tool to fill in color. I'm going to go over that in detail when we start learning Illustrator. When you're choosing your font, keep in mind your subject and appropriateness. I would steer away from script fonts for this because it's not going to stitch well. It won't be easy to read. I would also strongly encourage you to not use serifed fonts because they tend to have very thin strokes. The strokes go from very thick to very thin. So you really need to consider using a sans serif font on that. Don't use forbidden fonts. This gives you a little checklist at the end here for to make sure that you're covering all your bases.